this is normally the part of ECSO News where we do Ask the Sheriff, but I decided to do one better and actually bring Sheriff Morgan on for this segment and Commissioner Doug Underhill. And today we're talking about some recent violence that has happened over in the Myrtle Grove area, and that would be Commissioner Underhill's area and his district. And I brought Sheriff Morgan on to talk more about law enforcement and what it is that we are doing over in the Myrtle Grove area. So we have, since December, I think is when our first shooting happened over in the Myrtle Grove area off of West Jackson. What are some things that we've done as an SO to combat that?
Well, as you well know, Amber, I mean, everyone's on the street 24/7, but unfortunately, even with that sort of patrol coverage, and District 2 was one of the districts after our reorganization due to budgetary problems and manpower drawdowns and that sort of thing, that we did up the patrol coverage there. And we tell folks, if we're not there the moment an incident occurs, then of course we're in a reactive mode. And unfortunately, the last incidents that we've had in District 2 in the Myrtle Grove area off of Jackson Street in that area has been that. It's been drug related, which almost all of our shootings are. And they're almost random acts of violence because of the lifestyle and activity that these people are engaged in. So what we want to assure the people, and that's why Commissioner Underhill got a hold of us, and we'll shoot this segment for the community, is to let them know that we are aware of the situation, we're aware of the problem and things that we're doing. We have a burglary task force that had already been assigned to work Escambia County, and so we've seen a dramatic drop in burglaries. We've increased that particular function now. We've drawn a couple more people from other parts of the county to once again up the manpower that we have. We're going to start with 3 additional people. We may go to 5. Now, sadly, because of our manpower situation, other parts of the community will suffer for that because that's just the significance of this. And we can't sustain the alert rate forever. But right now, we want to assure Commissioner Underhill and his constituents that we are aware of what's going on in the Myrtle Grove area, and we have formulated an appropriate response to that. And I'll let the Commissioner, speak to those issues as to what he wants his constituents to do in their assistance to law enforcement, primarily through our neighborhood watch groups.
Absolutely. So we're getting our neighborhood watch groups involved. We're doing some town hall meetings with them to kind of let them know about the situation. But the thing that the Sheriff's Office has really done is we already had a unit in place. We just kind of beefed that unit up a little bit to go around.
That is completely true. And again, and again, this is where Commissioner Underhill comes in and his communications with his district and the neighborhood watch and the town hall neighborhood watch meeting coming up tomorrow night on Wednesday is to reiterate to the community that we must have your partnership in law enforcement. Why? Because even if we were fully manned at the Sheriff's Office, we can't be everywhere at all times. And so, the almost become cliches and catchphrases today. If you see something, say something, pick up the phone. We can't respond if you don't call us. And so we want to reiterate to the community that unless you're engaged in high-risk behavior, the probability of you being a victim of one of these crimes is slim to none. What frightens everyone, unfortunately, are the random acts of violence that occurred on Fairfield and W. That's why we must get a handle on this. We must put a lid on this problem before it grows anymore.
Absolutely. And the see something, say something is something that you want your constituents to know. You want the people out in Myrtle Grove to know that we all need to work together to help this. We all live and work in Escambia County and want it to be the best it can be.
Absolutely. We've been working for 3 years in Myrtle Grove to ensure that they are the squeakiest of squeaky wheels. We took that paradigm, the squeaky wheel gets grease, and the people at Myrtle Grove said, well, then we will be the squeaky wheel. When we see something that we think should be better in our neighborhood, we are going to step up and say something about it. So they said that we needed street lights. The county put in 701 street lights in Myrtle Grove. Myrtle Grove is safer at night now than it has ever been, than it's been in recent history. And we're doing this on a lot of different levels at the county. And the reason is because I, as the commissioner, I'm not telling them what we're going to do in Myrtle Grove. They're telling me what they need done. So when you see that the entire function of government in a democracy starts with the citizen, and an active citizen is the best line of defense we have on everything. Now, we've been making great progress in Myrtle Grove, and if you drive through there, you see lots of signs of private sector reinvestment in people's homes, and that's it really is your litmus test that tells you that this neighborhood is on the incline. So we've been doing all of this great stuff, and then when this what appears to be an uptick of violent crimes in the area, that sort of makes everybody step back and say, oh my goodness, what's going on? So that's why I like I said, I approached the sheriff's office saying, let's get out in front of those citizens and let's let them ask their questions to me and him directly. There's a lot of things in the news that would make you believe, and in a lot of ways there is an adversarial role particularly on budget items between the BOCC and the sheriff's office. That does not affect how we serve the citizens on the street.
Absolutely not.
It does not in any way decrease our responsibility to collaborate, cooperate, work together, always for the betterment of the citizens in the neighborhoods like Myrtle Grove. And so that's why I'm looking forward to having the sheriff's team and my team in a joint town hall where the citizens can really have a dialogue with us.
And the town hall, if people can't make that, or this airs kind of after the town hall happens, how could they get a hold of you and let you know some of their concerns?
Well, that's very easy. District2 at myescambia.com, always my preferred method of communication because I like written communication. Forces me to give you a written answer back,
yes.
And then 5 years from now when you say, Commissioner, you said such and such, right. You've got evidence. And I like being tied to the truth that way. Yes. If you prefer to call, 595-4920, you're going to get Jonathan Owens, my aide, be the one picking up the phone. Chances are he'll have your problem solved before I even hear about it, because that's just the way he is.
Right.
And people in Myrtle Grove already know that for the most part because
right.
We've got a pretty strong track record of responding. I can't always tell you what you want to hear, but I'll always tell you the truth, and I'll tell it to you quickly.
And we're talking a lot about working with neighborhood watches. We do a lot at the Sheriff's Office with neighborhood watches. We hold meetings for them to learn how to get these neighborhood watches together. One thing we always say is we love these Facebook pages. You see the Neighborhood Watch Facebook pages. They're a great thing. Along with the See Something, Say Something, just putting it on a Facebook page sometimes isn't always reporting it, and we don't always see that. So again, if you have a neighborhood Facebook page, it's a wonderful resource. We love having those, but it reports those crimes or anything that happened to your local law enforcement, or if it's something to do with roads or issues you may have in your neighborhood, please call your county commissioner in your district that you're at. That's always something.
Amber, I'll tell you, I can't think of a single neighborhood in my district that doesn't have a neighborhood watch that is dialed in tightly with the sheriff's office. Sheriff, how many neighborhood watches do you have now?
We have over 150. When I took office a little over 9 years ago, we had 13 active. And so, what Amber just brought up, I want to caution the social media people. While that's a primary mode of communication today, we have literally had incidents out in the Beulah area specifically, where an incident occurred and people got on Facebook and shared it, and no one ever called the sheriff's office. And so they talked amongst themselves about it was a rash of car burglaries. And so we checked back on the records and no one had contacted us. And so there was like 13 or more cars that had been burglarized, and we didn't have one report of that in the community. So folks, you've got to take that extra step. You've got to call 433-STOP if you're reporting a Crime Stoppers issue and you're looking for a reward, or obviously 911, or you can call 436-9620, which is a non-emergency number. So if you're seeing something occurring, any one of those numbers will get you some sort of response from us. But putting it on Facebook, and especially in the community Facebooks, while you're sharing information, may not get any reaction from the sheriff's office. So you've got to take that step to make sure that we're notified. Nothing's more frustrating to us than that. And I will tell you how well that works. A couple of weeks ago, involving these incidents, I came back to the office and was doing one of the local radio programs, and I did a plea to the community that these are thugs in our community. We need your assistance. You have to report if you know this. Do it anonymously. Call 433-STOP. As luck would have it, within about 10 minutes, someone did call Crime Stoppers, and we made an arrest. So it works when the community bonds with us and says, hey, we're going to help the sheriff's office out. And folks, you can do it anonymously. You don't need to give us your name. As a matter of fact, by law, when you make a Crime Stoppers report, we cannot divulge who that is, even if we knew, which, by the way, we don't. You get literally a number. It's like a Swiss bank account number, and we don't know who you are. And it's against the law if we for some reason, some fluke, we would find out who that was. We can't report you. We can't say, well, our witness was.
Sheriff, that's a great point, because on our side of the house, what we need to really be paying attention to in Myrtle Grove and other places like it is abating nuisance situations that make it an environment where that criminal element thinks they're welcome there. That criminal element.
You talked about street lights. That was one thing that you guys are kind of doing over there to.
Yeah, and our message is that criminal element has no place in Myrtle Grove, because the citizens there will watch you. If they see behavior that's inappropriate, they're going to call it in. But my job is to make sure that as you drive drive through Myrtle Grove, it's very clear that this is not a neighborhood
Right.
where you're welcome. And that means abating old houses that have been fallen into disrepair and turned into crack houses and that kind of business. And just ensuring that that the environment is a safe environment and one that says this is a community that cares about itself. And the sheriff just mentioned the idea of being able to report anonymously. That's an important part of our code enforcement as well. Some people have failed to call in or won't call in because there's a fear of retribution. When you call my office to put in a code enforcement complaint, it goes in under my name, and if somebody has an issue with that, they can call me. But a much better tool for that is the Ask My Escambia app that guarantees your anonymity. It's an app on your phone. It actually takes fewer keystrokes to put in a complaint to the county than it does to complain about it on Facebook. So it's a very easy way. Take a picture. It actually geotags exactly where the problem is, and oftentimes we've got staff on that much faster than any other method.
It's a free app?
It's free. You can download
Android
it.
or iPhone?
Android or iPhone. Download it at myescambia.com, the county website. And those things help us be more visible and active in the community, and that's the deterrent factor to the crimes.
We tell people that all the time, Commissioner. Some things we make more complicated than they really are. And my approach to people is when you drive through a neighborhood, you ought to ask yourself a basic question: is this someplace I would want to live? And if it's full of abandoned property, buildings that are falling down, and it's inhabited by drug dealers and prostitutes and other folks that shouldn't, be engaged in that activity, then the answer is unequivocally no. I don't want to live here. That's what we should approach Escambia County in our cleanup efforts, and that's where the county commission comes in, with the boards that they hold, and again, they get your special magistrate basically together, and they work through that process, and code enforcement is the enforcement arm of that. So,
Right.
I can't overemphasize calling Commissioner Underhill
Yes.
and the other Board of County Commissioners if you have a neighborhood which is someplace you don't want to live. The way it's cleaned up is to call your commissioner and start that part of the governmental process, because law enforcement then gets engaged appropriately. I'm not in the business of abandoned buildings. I'm not in the business of demolishing them or bringing them back to life, if you will. The county commission is. The partnership here is when those are allowed to exist, those become havens for crime and criminal activity. So it's important that, again, the town hall meetings and that the commissioners hold is to report that very thing. I have a section in my community where I wouldn't want to live. That's your first focus. Why wouldn't you want to live there? Well, it's got abandoned buildings and all the windows are broken out and drug dealers are hanging out there. Commissioner identifies that, we get engaged, and the county commission does the appropriate thing the other way. It has to be a partnership. It fails if it isn't.
Yes. So that's something that we were really wanting to bring to the audience today, was the see something, say something, work together. And I thank you both for joining us and getting that message out. And again, if you have any kind of crimes you want to report, you can always call us at the Escambia County Sheriff's Office at 436-9620, or always at Crime Stoppers if you'd like to remain anonymous at 433-STOP. And Commissioner, what's a good number for you again?
595-4920.
All right, thank you so much.
Tammy has a question about a wild fox that gets into her backyard, and Tammy asks, is it legal for her to shoot it? She lives in Brownsville. Tammy, the short answer is no, it's not legal for you to take the life of this animal, even though it's a wild animal that's on your property. The appropriate thing to do, Tammy, is to call the County Animal Control Office, which is located down on Fairfield. Those animal control officers will come up and they will set up traps in your backyard, again, where they will attempt to trap that particular animal, that fox, and then dispose of it in the appropriate way. So do not use a firearm or anything else. Please don't put poison out in your yard. Someone's pet, a cat or a dog, may get into the poison, etc. We have professionals that actually do these things. Or you can call one of the local agencies that actually does, removal of animals such as this. There's folks in town that do pest control that also includes, animals such as raccoons and possum and fox and snakes. So you can also call them if you want someone to respond immediately. Or again, call animal control and they'll assist you in the wild fox that you have getting into your backyard. Charmaine asked the question why vehicles are not, or why occupants and owners of vehicles are not given fines for, not having the appropriate safety gear. I say safety gear, Charmaine, because, headlights, parking lights, turn signals, etc., emergency flashers, that's all considered part of your emergency gear. We do issue citations based upon that. Again, when an officer has time to do it, I know a lot of times we'll get calls from citizens to say, your deputy drove right past a vehicle that had a headlight out. It was obvious to everyone and you didn't turn around and stop them. Well, again, Charmaine, we answer a tremendous number of calls in Escambia County, and that may be low priority at the time. An officer may be responding to a call, a silent alarm, or they may be responding to the next call that's on the CAD that came up in their computer on their vehicle. So while I will tell you that those traffic infractions are handled, again, all those tickets are processed down at the clerk of the court in the traffic division. I know for a fact that I had a relative not too long ago that received a ticket for having a headlight out. And so we do issue those citations. While you may not have observed it, or you may not have any particular observation, if you will, of that, let me tell you a little family insight here. One of my wife's freaky things is people dropping their cigarette butts outside the car. And she's asked the question, why don't we give more citations for littering? Because we quite obviously we don't have time to devote to those lower level infractions, if you will, as opposed to responding to the real crime incidents and issues that we have in Escambia County. David asked, are we going to crack down on skateboarding on the Pensacola Beach, I believe, boardwalk? That he had sustained an injury, a resultant settlement. Again, David, I'm going off of what you've told us of possibly $250,000, $250,000. David, as with all things, those are ordinances, that we enforce when we're contacted and when we see that. Quite obviously, we can't be everywhere all the time. In almost all of our instances, because of the shortage of officers that we have, we're in a purely reactive mode, meaning that if no one called and complained about a skateboarder on the boardwalk, there's quite a possibility that we would have never known that and might not have ever known it until you were involved in an injury, and then we responded. So, it's a matter, David, of having a law enforcement officer in every place where an incident could occur. We don't have that now, and to be quite honest, we will never have that.
Question is, I'd like to know how the sheriff believes that medical marijuana will affect Escambia County.
Jenna asked, how do I feel or believe that medical marijuana will affect Escambia County? Well, Jenna, quite obviously it'll affect the state of Florida and not just Escambia County. But to be specific, I've always taken the position on medical marijuana that, and by the way, this is a little bit, I will tell you up front that I'm breaking somewhat with other law enforcement agency heads and professionals. I'm not qualified enough to in any way engage with the medical profession to dictate to them what they should and should not prescribe for medications for their patients. I would not be so presumptuous as to lecture a doctor on medications, any new medication or old medication for that matter. Marinol has been around for a very, very long time, late 60s, early 70s, which can be taken in a pill or a patch form, which is, again, medical THC, which is the content in marijuana. It's a very low amount that is there, and it's been available for prescription for some time, but again, in very limited cases. I think what you're going to see here, and what we fear in law enforcement, is that the passage of medical marijuana is just step one to the final legalization of marijuana. Study after study has proven that marijuana used in the forms that you see on the street, because the THC content is extremely high. A lot of people my age and older, don't understand that the THC content in today's marijuana is nothing like the marijuana they smoked back in the 60s, when marijuana was the drug of choice and it was a craze. And this is where all of the folks that are banging the drum for legalization across the board talk about it's no worse than alcohol, etc. I don't engage in those circular debates. I normally, as I'm doing with answering your question, is go back to the data that I am familiar with, that I have read. So medical marijuana, again, I won't debate that. I think that's left up to the medical profession. I know I find it a little disconcerting that the American Medical Association, the American Ophthalmic Association, and many of those who were brought into this debate will tell you that there's little or no available data to show the efficacy of actually prescribing these drugs. So, but again, that's the medical profession, and if they're having issue with that, then they won't prescribe it, and I pretty much leave it at that. My concern for marijuana across the board is its eventual legalization. I would tell folks to check some of the data coming out of Colorado and some of the states that have basically legalized marijuana, and they have some huge social issues right now. It's much like gambling. There are folks who will benefit tremendously from the legalization of gambling, drugs, etc., and society as a whole suffers for it because who pays for the drug addiction that's rampant? Who pays for the loss of jobs, etc., in the community when gambling comes in and it sucks the life out of your community where all of the other businesses, except for the large casino complexes, go out of business? The local hoteliers, the mom and pop restaurants, and those sorts of things. If you don't work for the large casino, you don't work. And so that's something as a society we need to look at. My approach is I enforce laws, I don't make laws. And so if my community decides to legalize marijuana, I'll do the best that I can to enforce the laws such as they are. Same goes with gambling. My personal preference as to whether I agree or disagree with either one of those things really doesn't matter in this debate. The day that I come to work and decide I'm going to enforce the laws that I agree with and not the ones that I don't is the day I shouldn't be sheriff. The question is, what do report takers do, and basically what are the qualifications? Don't want to get into the weeds, as we say, about report takers and what they do, but the short, easy answer is they allow our officers to remain 10-8, which means on patrol, active in your community, instead of taking time to pull over, write a lengthy report, etc. So what they do is they call in from the basic incident, give the report taker basic details. The report takers can actually assist the officer in looking up the appropriate statutes, what the violation is, etc. And they compile all this while the shift is going on, while the officer remains active in your neighborhood. And then at the end of the shift, they do a quick report review, they approve it, and then it goes to our supervisor. So again, a report taker is someone that relieves an officer of some of the administrative requirements of, again, documenting each and every response that they have contact with citizens and incidents, so they can stay, again, on patrol and active in your neighborhood, returning to the next call. I want to remind everyone, and this is an excellent example, that we handle what's referred to as an inordinate amount of calls in Escambia County for a community of our size. Every year, I think we dropped one year to a low of about 243,000 calls for service. Let me repeat that number. 243,000 calls for service. One year we topped out at over 300,000 calls for service. That's more than one for every man, woman, and child in Escambia County. That includes the city, by the way, for that total number. For your specific requirements on qualifications to be a report taker, I would encourage you to, again, contact our Human Resources Department. You can make application online. They will tell you specifically, and they'll give you the outline as how many words per minute that you have to be able to type, what computer systems that you have to be conversant with, those sorts of things. And again, I don't obviously have the HR manual in front of me, so I won't attempt to go down what those qualifications are. But please contact our Human Resources Department at the Escambia County Sheriff's Office. They'd be more than happy to assist you in that. Jennifer asked about partnering with our animal control folks in starting a program. I know there's programs in other areas like this where inmates are brought in to not only assist at the kennels, but they refer to them as jail dogs, and the inmates actually help with the care and the feeding and the maintenance and cleanup of facilities, and it's part of their rehabilitation process. Well, of course, again, Jennifer, we don't run the jail. We're not engaged with the detention activities. But I would certainly call your county commissioner and make that recommendation. I know at one time there was a similar program years ago in Escambia County where that was part of a rehabilitation program with inmates where it taught them to be responsible in the caring and feeding of an animal. And of course the county also benefited from the fact that they had additional workers over at the kennels. I know that putting animals down is a terrific thing. My wife and I are both animal lovers. We have a pet. But I can also tell you that sometimes our overpopulation in Escambia County of cats and dogs, and especially cats, can be overwhelming. There are no-kill facilities. The SPCA here in town is a no-kill facility, and so they take a lot of animals in. Some animals will put down because of their breed. The vicious animals that are involved in attacks on humans, unfortunately, are normally put down when they're put into the facility. But we don't run animal control at the Escambia County Sheriff's Office, and so again, I would direct you back to your Board of County Commissioners, and specifically the commissioner for your district, and ask them about implementing that program. Yeah, Marie asked the question about school buses and stopping for them, and when you can and cannot pass, or do you have to stop? Marie, the short basic answer is if you're in the lane or lanes traveling behind a school bus or approaching a school bus, if it's a 2-lane road or even a 4-lane road that is not physically separated by a median, meaning that there's a grassy area between it or some sort of concrete abutment, all traffic must stop. If you're on a 4-lane or even a 2-lane highway that has a median separation, meaning that you'd have to drive through or down or over some sort of barrier to get to the opposing lane, you're not required to stop. So if you're behind a school bus and they stop, or you're approaching a school bus and they stop and the flag and the stop sign goes out, if you will, everyone has to stop if you're on the same traffic flow as the school bus. If you're separated from that traffic flow, meaning by a physical median, there is no legal requirement for you to stop if you're coming with the traffic flow in the opposite direction. Hopefully that answers your question. Remember, you can also email your questions and ask the sheriff at escambiaso.com. We'll be back next week right here on Blab TV Tuesday night at 8 p.m.